Hi, everybody. Welcome to History Respawned. On today's live stream, we are going to be looking at the newest DLC for Assassin's Creed Valhalla called Wrath of the Druids, which takes us to Ireland. First time for an Assassin's Creed game in Ireland. So, to mark that occasion, I've invited onto the stream my co-host on History Respawned, an Irishman, John Hardy. John, welcome.
Hey Bob, it's good to be here, and I'm excited. I've been excited, and the internet tells me I'm not the only Irishman who's been excited about this DLC for a while. This is going to be cool.
So just a heads up to the viewers, I was able to get a early access to this DLC from Ubisoft, and this game is, I think, already reviews have already come out. They seem to be good, but I haven't been able to play it much yet because I've been busy grading finals. It's that time of the year. So I thought instead of just playing this by myself, I would just have John come on and take a look and see what is going on with Ireland in Assassin's Creed Valhalla. And just briefly, John, there was a character here by the name of Azar, an assassin from Ireland who's come to visit England, and he has brought tidings from my cousin, Eivor's cousin, who is apparently the current king of Dublin. And so he is looking for assistance, and so now I've got the option here to speak to Azar and then go to Ireland. So that is what we are going to do right now.
Eivor, are you prepared to go to Ireland?
Eivor's well connected. Why did Eivor ever go to England?
I would like to.
Your cousin's the king of Dublin? Why did you go to England? He's the king of Dublin?
Well,
that's like a big deal.
From what I've gained so far, is that Eivor wasn't aware that this guy was alive anymore. She thought her cousin was dead. So
fair enough.
That might be it. Which I think is a common occurrence in the Dark Ages, is to get dead.
That's true. People just assume that you are. You've been gone to the shops for longer than usual. He's probably dead. That's what usually happens. God, this is a beautiful game.
It's gorgeous.
On the PlayStation 5.
Yes, this is the PS5 version of the game.
A patchwork of petty kings jostling for hills and pastures and green glens. My adopted Isle.
So I'm not an expert on the 10th century in Ireland, but that, from my knowledge, that is actually a fairly accurate description of Irish politics in the 10th century.
How is it that Gareth knows as I
Yeah, we're not going to advertise this stream as historians playing, because it's just the two of us without any prior knowledge, just taking a look at this new Assassin's Creed DLC. But you know, it's still fun, I think, to get a different area.
Yeah.
Sounds grander than it is.
I think what I like about it, from what I've heard of it, and I'm excited to see this, is, you know, of course Ireland is very close to England, obviously, but it is a different area. And I was telling you, Bob, before the recording started, you know, Cian Maher, who I think writes for the Gamer, who's an Irish writer, games writer, loves this DLC, and I've seen a lot of buzz from Irish people. And for people watching, maybe they already know this, but like Dublin was founded by the Vikings. In fact, a bunch of Irish cities were. And what I was told in college many years ago is that all the Vikings conquered the English, they weren't able to conquer the Irish. That's what a professor said to us. But his tongue was in his cheek, and he was like, that's kind of true, except the Irish politics was such a pain in the behind that the Vikings effectively established footholds in all these major coastal areas and just raided when they felt like it into the monasteries from there. So they never needed, they didn't fail to conquer Ireland because the Irish are so awesome. But there wasn't really a need to do so. There wasn't a need to make the island of Ireland a Viking territory.
Boy, this looks great.
Your crew can find lodging here. Come, let us find bodies.
So so this is like, they're an assassin, as in like...
Yes.
Assassin. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Like the two guys at the start of the vanilla game.
That's exactly right. And I'm only about 30 hours into the vanilla game, the base game for Valhalla. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, there are some elements apparently to this that will relate to the end game for, base Valhalla. So if viewers are worried about spoilers, obviously, don't watch any further. But if you're not and you just want to hear us talk about it, then yeah, keep watching.
Thank you for keeping my ports from being set ablaze in my absence.
My ports? Yes, old man.
So John, I'm wondering, I haven't really thought about this ever, but I'm sure you have. How many games have you played that have featured Ireland as a setting?
Oh God, not a lot. There was a game years ago now, The Saboteur, which was kind of a GTA clone, but set in World War II. But that was actually an Irish protagonist, I think. I don't think it was in Ireland exactly. Yeah, it's not a common setting for games at all. In fact, the most recent thing I did was I was playing Microsoft Flight Simulator and I flew over my hometown. That was like that. You end up doing things like that. And, I guess you could argue Crusader Kings 2 and games like that, where Ireland has kind of taken on this fairly prominent role in the Crusader Kings games, like as this kind of community role as Tutorial Island, which is kind of what it is. But now that I think of it, yeah, actually, funnily enough, I think those Paradox games are the closest I've come to playing as Ireland.
Huh.
Or even in Ireland in like a meaningful way,
Well, so here we've got some other areas, some regions of Ireland, and it looks like they got a good portion of the island here. I'm kind of impressed. It doesn't look small by any means.
So those areas to the south and west, do you think that you're never going to get to them? Or,
yeah, unfortunately, I don't think so. I mean, if they're kind of sketched off here, you can kind of see the lines going through them. I would imagine you're not going to get to them. So, apologies to the rest of Ireland here. But we got Dublin, we got Ulster here.
That's right.
Yeah. And I don't know whether
Meath to the west.
What other townships we're going to get in here. I'm sure you can kind of guess based off where they're located. But that town there under Connacht, I'm assuming is Galway, or is that west enough to be Galway? But Galway is this city in the west of Ireland, which is an extremely cool place actually, and is yet another. I believe is yet another one of these cities that, if not outright Viking city, was heavily influenced by it. I mean, here we've got somebody with a picture. Not a great picture there. Here's some mountains. Another not great picture. Yeah, so I wonder.
And these were all like in Irish history. So you go up in Ulster here, and Ulster is a major part of some of the great Irish myths, like the Ulster Cycle, as it's known, featuring guys like Cuchulainn who died standing up, and they didn't go near him for 3 days because they're so scared of him, and all these kinds of great kind of, these myths / tales / histories that you get that particularly become popularized later on in the 19th century, of course, when people are trying to find a reason for an Irish state to exist. But you have, if anyone's ever heard the name O'Neill, which I'm pretty sure everybody watching has at some point, the O'Neills are a famous power family up in that part of the country. Later on, after this, more, but
vast trade web will bring wealth to all
just interesting.
If Flann can be made to see that, my kingship and that of my children's children will be safe.
I cannot guarantee your throne, but a vast
So,
trading web is
just off
within
of
my power.
No one else
listening to the character banter here, it sounds like the storyline we're getting here in Ireland is very similar to every single storyline we get in Valhalla, which is you go to a new region, somebody's trying to set themselves up as king,
I'll be there shortly.
and they need to make sure that they use Eivor's help in order to kind of establish their claim to whatever petty kingship they can get their hands on. So, and I would say, I mean, I know, John, you've played this game a bit. I would say that kind of cycle, just over and over again, it gets a little dull for me.
Right.
This is for me.
And when it's a challenge, these games have gotten so long.
Me best work. Give her a try. Hit the targets before the sand runs out. Think you can get them all?
Hit the targets before the sand runs out. That's actually an Irish accent. It's just slightly more pronounced than usual, but she's just being very eager.
Of course I will.
A good
Stand
Irish
ready
name,
to be
Aoife.
astonished.
Aren't you the confident one?
Now, I
Shall
know
be
we
embarrassed
talked a
when you
little
if
bit
you
about
shut
the
up
Irish
eggs.
accents when you were
Watch my
playing
arrows
Neo,
fly.
I
and
certainly
I'm
will.
wondering,
Go.
how many
That's
Irish,
right, yeah.
legitimate Irish accents we'll get here. Oh, am I supposed to be shooting now?
Oh, you're under the gun. Yeah, I didn't know. I wish I knew more. I'm glad you clarified wouldn't be doing history here, because I wish I knew more about what to think of kind of 10th century Dublin or early Viking Dublin. I wouldn't really know, to be perfectly honest. I'm kind of curious as we see more of the city, or maybe even the land slightly outside the city.
But it is a very thoughtful
Because I agree, I'm kind of surprised Ulster's there. Because
Mhm.
that is a lot of territory. I know it's obviously Assassin's Creed, distance, so I mean,
Yeah.
they can obviously they'll compress it, but still, I mean, they didn't have to do that. They could have just made it a Dublin and Meath thing. I think
Well
people
done,
would have been happy
Cassie.
enough.
Wait, is that a house of God?
Aye, Christ's own church. Ireland is mostly
Hillcrest.
Christian now, and so is Dublin. Many Norse chew the wafer.
You make a place for them.
Them? I myself have a place in Christ's house, as I do in the house of Thor.
Chew the wafer. They
So
told me
long
you
as
weren't
a
allowed
God
to
has
do
my
that.
back, he has my altar.
I was a boy. That must have been a later innovation.
I've built this city up from rubble. 20 years ago, us Vikings.
So we're getting a look at
The Irish took the
Uh-huh.
Irish
Dublin
sacked
here.
Dublin.
I was hoping to be able to kind of roam around a bit more. Maybe I
Norse
should have
founded it, and
played
I
a bit
nursed it
further
back to
before you
health.
came in, but
When I became king, I was
Well, I think we're
king
getting a
of
good view of
mud
this city
pit.
here. This is all pretty cool, actually. And
Yeah,
again, I mean, I think that yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
oh no, I was going to say the settlement art that they've done in this game is really spectacular.
Yeah, I think like funnily enough, Bob, it makes me think of the episode you
There,
did with
up ahead.
on
My
Odyssey.
Hmm.
My only regret is
Particularly
that
when
my
you
mother and
guys
my wife
talked.
aren't here to greet
Forgive
you.
me now, I'm
They've
forgetting.
gone
My
on
mind
pilgrimage
can't
to
place
the
the guess. When
mountains
you guys
just now.
talked about the
Water's there
Cake
to
cook.
your mother's
statue
house.
area, cake
Mhm.
cook, of course, yeah.
My wayward
The statues, and
And
of
to
course
host
the
a
classic
banquet.
point that has been made
We
a lot
should
the
be
last few
already
years that
underway.
these statues weren't white at all, right? They were actually coloured. But little things like I'm just thinking back to that to be fair to them, Ubisoft seemed to be
Up, Barrett,
they just seem to be getting better at this as the games go by. This is great. Look at that.
Yeah, amazing.
Here we are. Please go enjoy yourself. I must have a word with my son. Come meet him before the night's out.
little dancing here.
Little Irish dancing there. It's good.
Cousin. It's a grand do, isn't it?
A grand do. Enjoy the celebration.
Hussar, I was not
So there
sure if
seems
I
to be a
would
lot of
see
hinting
you.
here to kind of a
Why is that?
hybrid
I thought you'd
Norse-Irish
rather take stock of your wares
culture,
than
which makes a lot of
placidly
sense.
observe caterwauling Vikings.
And you would rather spend time with this gossiping auntie?
I like to greet everyone.
So where is
at
Azar from?
parties.
Is Azar
There is
from
no
what used
shortage
to be
of
called the
amusements.
Levant, kind of the setting of the
Enjoy
first game
yourself.
I'm not
of
really
15
sure.
years ago?
Yeah, I'm not really sure if they've set that down. I mean, I know. I mean, I think the two assassins that you meet at the beginning of this game, the vanilla game, the base game, I think they are.
It's past time to pick my child.
They are, yeah. I remember that.
Yeah,
They're
but
from
I,
somewhere near
I,
there.
I haven't
Expect
heard
my son to
where Azar's
act like
from.
the future king, not roll in the muck.
So Flan will take you on as his farting court jester.
Think with your head and not your arse. Flan can assure my throne, which will one day be yours.
That makes you the ass.
Enough! Eivor, my son, Siegfried. I'm sorry, I must clear my head. Could you...
So is this common? I haven't played as much of the original game as you. Is this standard? Two people are
is.
fighting and you do a quest. Yeah.
It absolutely
Only
is.
shitbirds mock their father under his own roof.
Right. Because
I'm
the
playing my
Kaiser
Eivor
just
as a bit of a
arrived
jerk,
with
so
authority over how I speak in my own home.
this renegade
No way
Eivor.
Be knocked to the ground by
I know.
now.
I was. I'm tempted when I finally get the legendary version of Mass Effect, which I will
Well,
break and do,
You
to
won't
finally do
land
the
a
space
single
a-hole run
punch.
of my dreams. 3 games is just the biggest jerk in space, you know.
Oh.
You're up against it again. Jeez, come on. Sicrith is some child of privilege. This is Eivor you're dealing with.
Yeah, no kidding.
Take that.
That was easy. Come on. Get one decent block in there and then take him down.
How does this longhouse compare to ones you've seen in England in the original game? It's huge.
So this one's bigger, it feels like. You know, the one at Ravensthorpe, the kind of main settlement, is pretty large as well, but this one looks even larger than that. And
You're unhappy with how your father rules.
but you know, the storyline here of the kind of conflict over who will be king, who will be leading this area, this district. This is the same one that you see throughout
Right.
throughout the game, and it's just each region is like this.
Give Dublin a fair.
I mean, I like that there's a complexity to this idea of like they couldn't just show up and just kill people and take over. And Ireland is potentially very fertile for this as well because, like I was saying earlier, you know, the tongue-in-cheek comment from my old professor all those years ago, but that there was this complexity to it. I mean, the Vikings are bringing in this very obvious military superiority, really, or at the very least, they're disruptive in a way that scares living daylights out of the existing rulers in the countryside. But yeah, there was a kind of a compromise that was reached.
Teach me how to hit like that sometime.
All right.
So this countryside is very evocative of home.
Yeah.
And I think that looks a bit different from the game, the base game, which again makes sense because English and Irish scenery are quite different.
South of Dublin, top a hill, large tree. Great. Okay, well, maybe somewhere over here. Go jump on a horse. After I jump in this lake, I suppose. Or the moat. I don't know. You can tell how well versed I am in medieval architecture.
Well, the River Liffey is going to be somewhere here. It might be the Liffey, although it kind of looks like it ends over there. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Get up here on shore and get a horse.
How did your horse know to find you in Dublin?
Well,
video game. Well, I guess it came in from the boat. Yeah. Yeah.
Although I would imagine, you know, trying to transport horses back during this time period would have been quite a pain, I think.
Well, that's what hurt the Mongolians in Japan, you know. Now we're mixing all our different things. I just love, for the people watching. I've been playing video games for 30 years, and I still make stupid jokes about it. That doesn't make sense. Like you think I would have made my peace with it by now, but no.
I think that's part of the fun with video games is, you know, being able to kind of step back and go like, oh, this is definitely still a video game. You know, we can't take it too seriously.
I didn't even ask after him. Somehow I knew he'd.
So what I'm curious about, and we're not going to get to it in this playthrough, obviously, or this short video, is I wonder the extent to which the game is hinting that this guy and his son are having some generational conflict. So he's obviously still practicing the religion that he grew up with and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
But depending on what age his son was when they came, or maybe it'll be his grandchildren, at some point they become Catholic, either for political reasons or cultural exposure or whatever. So I'm curious to see if that's going to happen in this game, because that seems like it would have been a thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
In dead of night, stars in the sky, moonlight on snow.
Oh no, we're gonna get a flashback. Oh, thank goodness.
And that's how I got that scar.
I do feel bad about that.
Scars are such great conversation pieces. I should get one. And that's how I got that scar.
If we tell all our stories, we'll be here a week.
Do you see something?
I think we're about to be ambushed here.
But let us away.
Oh. Somebody watching.
Is that a stag of some description? Or a guy with a
guy with a stag head.
Stag helmet, yeah.
Funny how just the slightest noise sets a fellow on edge.
By Thor's hammer bar it.
Here's the rain right on cue.
Not as spry as the old days, eh?
There's my trusty horse.
The night in hopes of catching
Watch
a
my
will-o'
back.
wisp.
Did we catch one? I have a memory of catching one.
Escort mission here. Something that Assassin's Creed is kind of infamously known for.
They just can't quit it.
What?
Goodness gracious, what are these things? Some kind of Irish hound with a bloody head. Oof.
So the Irish Wolfhound is a famously large dog. One of the larger domestic dogs there is. So like that scale is pretty normal.
Hmm.
And I'm not, and they show up a lot in Irish classical stories. The hound. I'm not clear on what their connection to like a modern day Irish Wolfhound is.
Mm-hmm.
But the modern day Irish Wolfhound is a big dog.
Who were they?
My ascension to the throne has not been without contest. The previous king's son, Thorstein, is
I
resentful.
love this is classic
You told me
Assassin's
nothing
Creed.
of this.
So anyway,
You are my guest.
just murdered 3 people. So let's get back to our conversation.
Concerns. I know why you've been anxious.
Ludonarrative dissonance right
He's
here.
worrying. He's never been so
Well,
bold
right,
before.
yeah, exactly.
He sees you as a usurper to his throne.
Perhaps, but he doesn't seem to want to take it. He contents himself by stealing and smuggling with his band of ruffians. It's petty Viking raiding, but it puts me in a bad light with Flann. That's certain.
I really
What's up,
like.
what?
I think we've seen a big chunk of it. And I really like Dublin in this game. This is really cool.
It is nice. It's a really sizable town.
Mm-hmm.
I think in the base game, at least as far as I've seen, the biggest territory or biggest city is London, obviously. But for Viking settlement, this is really impressive. It's much bigger than I've seen so far.
And of course, I mean Dublin today. Of course, I mean half of the people who live in the Republic of Ireland live in Dublin. But it's kind of always had this scale, a bit like London, right? It's always had this scale to it.
What? You know I am always the last to leave a party. What is wrong?
We were ambushed by Thorstein's men. Rivals I was not made aware of.
Small wonder King Flann does not embrace you, Bodith. You cannot keep control of the Vikings in your own city.
Thorstein makes me look like more of an arse than I do on my own.
I see. It is the High King's disfavor that makes this shameful.
They love the word
My
arse
cousin.
in this game.
I will take care of Thorstein.
No, I do not want to drag you into this sorry mess. Perhaps you'll accept silver to lie low.
For a week or two. But then he'll be back, and back again. I can remove this blot, once and for all.
Eivor, this is not your fight.
For any and all of your god's sakes, Bodith, let Eivor help you.
As of this moment,
I
Bodhi,
gotta say, I
my
think
arm is yours.
the voice actors do a good job with this game because I feel like
Eivor,
a lot of the
I've never been
language
so happy.
and
My
sentence
family
structure
saved mine those
that you
years
find
ago.
in this game
Fitting reply would be
is
to
pretty
secure the
clunky,
throne.
and I think probably a lot of that
Start
has
with
to relate
Thorstein.
to
It happens that
a
Siegfried
little
never
bit of
something.
this type of
Once
speech you
ran
get
with
from
Thorstein's
RPG
men.
games, but then also I'm sure they kind of think about it
Seek
in
him
terms
tomorrow in
of
the marketplace.
history and
After
how
carousing,
they
you'll
constructed
exert
Right.
sentences back then.
We'll
So
begin to forge
it's a lot
above
to do
High King
in each
Flann,
one of these
the rising
deliveries, and I
sun.
feel like the voice actors do a pretty good job with that in this game.
That's such a great point. I think of like the James Mason movies kind of thing, from the mid 20th century. Because this is in the past, we must speak a certain way.
Mhm.
And that, it's hard to shake that,
Mm-hmm.
Bareth said Sigfrid would be at the
Okay,
marketplace.
so she's a bit free to move around now, I guess, right?
I think so. Let's get an upgrade here. Yeah, go do that here.
See, I was just checking there, and so the city of Galway out to the west, if it is there, that wasn't a Norse settlement, but my hometowns, Limerick, where I was born, and Cork, where my family lives, are both Viking cities, and there were other kind of Viking settlements down the southeast. So that was really kind of key to their presence in Ireland, this kind of coastal presence, where they, at will, could move further inland for raiding parties, which they did quite a lot of. And they mentioned that most Irish are Catholic at this point. I mean, Catholicism, depending how you want to talk about it, like St. Patrick, who may have been as many as 3 different people. You know, the classic date is 432 AD, but certainly the 5th century is kind of when you're starting to see Catholicism being adopted by elites.
Mm-hmm.
So certainly by this time, there's a lot of Catholics in Ireland, but also the Catholic Church in Ireland, in addition to having a major cultural footprint, you know, the various monastic reproductions of the Bible and other kind of texts. Like in England, the monasteries are sources of, you know, stuff the Vikings want, wealth, you know.
Let's set out here just to wrap things up. Let's just set out and take a look at the countryside from our longship here. We're going to leave Dublin and we're going to go into the center.
I think it looks great.
Viking, you know, music here.
And this part of Ireland, especially to come out of Dublin and kind of the whole middle chunk of Ireland, really, it's not flat exactly. Like it's hilly, but it's not the hills, and there's not really mountains to talk about or anything like that, you know. You know, what would later become these huge kind of farming lands, you know, and still are. And in fact, just to the south of where they are now in the game would be, in fact, where they are in the game right now would be prime horse country as well today.
Mm-hmm.
Take the mouse down.
It's a little idyllic bridge here.
Now, let me ask you, Bob. I know you've only just taken a little trip outside the city, but does this feel different to England in the game in any meaningful way yet? I mean, mechanically there's similarities, obviously.
Not yet. You know, this is kind of what we're doing right now is kind of very similar to the moment feel of the game in England, and obviously the countryside looks a little bit different, but not in a kind of outrageous way.
Right.
It's obviously more green than it is in England.
Yeah.
There's some strange fog out there. I wonder what that is. Oops. Let's make sure we don't crash.
So obviously Druids is in the title of the DLC. I didn't play... I'd like to play more of Valhalla one of these days. One of the things I liked about Valhalla was this mixture of kind of the mythology and the quote-unquote history, or the you know, the occult almost, or the mythological stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And Ireland obviously would be fertile ground for that. So I'm just curious. Don't know.
Yeah, I wonder. And you know, just based on the images that I've seen so far of the DLC, it seems like it is a lot of these druid figures wearing animal skins and horns and you know, all sorts of kind of pagan religious items. So yeah, I'm curious. There is a lot of that in Valhalla already, so it'll be interesting to see how they iterate on that.
Here.
Yeah.
Oh, you're in Connacht already. Okay.
Yeah. So.
Well, you took the river. In fairness, that's kind of.
Yeah. So I was just let's see if this is Galway. We've got enough time.
Yeah.
We can jot up there.
Cool.
Yeah. And then we can end it off there. Let's see if I can get out of this. Let's go steer this boat.
It's fair enough. I wish I knew more about. I don't know much more about druidic religions and stuff in Ireland, but certainly.
Oh, there's a rainbow.
But the Catholic Church's story obviously is, as of St. Patrick, the country's Catholic. Don't ask us about it anymore. But it's not that simple, right? It's not you know. I mean, a continent of Europe's the same thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where, you know, even all these, you know, these are high-profile guys like Charlemagne who are Catholic, kind of, right at the end. But how that translates into kind of ordinary people is always a big question.
Yeah. Well, was there, I mean, I know you're not an expert at this time period, but was there a lot of variation in Catholicism across Ireland, or was it pretty consistent from pretty early on? I mean, because I would imagine it would have been popular in port cities, for instance, but I'm just curious if it was also
Yeah.
in the center towns, center cities. Galway,
Right.
for instance.
Yeah, I don't know much. To be perfectly honest, I don't know much because I think it's even in our own history when we're learning about the history of Irish Catholicism. There's all this focus on like the Columbans and all these kind of really important
Hmm.
monks, really, and other clerics who are actually kind of celebrated in Ireland for their um, intellectual achievements or artistic achievements. Like I said earlier, like the one of the famous examples is the Book of Kells, which is effectively an illustrated version of the Bible, um, which sits in Trinity University in Dublin. And there's this kind of, and there's this famous book people might have heard about, how the Irish saved civilization, which is a bit of a you know, uh, bit of a silly book in some ways, but it's kind of making the point that there's an extent to which some of these Irish monks successfully held on to some of that kind of Roman era knowledge and stuff
Hmm.
in ways that paid off later on. Um, but yeah, to be perfectly honest, how that translated into, for example, ordinary people, I don't know.
Yeah, let's see. Okay, I think I might have to hop out here and jump up the
Because,
hill.
until very recently, right, Ireland was a Catholic country in the way that, Poland was and all these different kinds of countries. So, like, I mean, when when our leader wrote our constitution in the 1930s, he invited the Archbishop to, like, help him edit it,
Hmm.
and so you grow up in that kind of a culture, and I'm still practicing Catholic, grew up in that culture, there's this flattening, right, of the history of the faith, because there's this kind of unspoken, they want you to think, okay, Rathcrogan, I'm not sure where that is. They kind of want you to think that it's always been like this,
Yes.
Everybody, and they're not setting out necessarily for that to be it, but there's kind of it'd be better if we all believe that. So, yeah, I think we're kind of in County Galway, Northern Mayo kind of thing, and
Oh,
it's a
distressed
pity.
air.
It's a pity they didn't do the coast because the coast is gorgeous in real life. Um, This is a trip. This is great.
Yeah.
Seeing Ireland in this kind of a game, seeing like this is just not
Yeah.
something I'm not sure I've ever seen.
Yeah.
It's
Oh,
great.
cool. Yeah.
It's really
Well,
cool.
let's.
The stone
let's-
walls. You see those stone walls down there? That's
Mhm.
classic.
Yeah.
Here in Kentucky, where I live, they're here as well because the Irish moved to Kentucky, built them here.
Are you saying
Bit late in the 10th century.
Yeah, just a little bit different there.
It was a little bit later, yeah.
And then of course it's raining. It's been raining since basically we got here. So another
Also legitimate, yes.
authentic. Yeah.
Also authentic, yeah.
All right, John. Well, thanks for joining me.
It was fun. Thanks, Bob. This looks really exciting. I'd love to see more of it. I hope people dig it. I think a lot of Irish people will buy this game.